Heard my fiancé, 27F, say I'm only with her because her ex broke up with her, and he's more gifted. The wedding is off. Subscribe to the channel and like the video to see more stories like this. I never thought the words that would destroy my entire world would come from the woman I was about to marry in just 3 weeks. Sarah and I had been together for 2 years, and I genuinely believed she was the love of my life. She was everything I had ever wanted. Beautiful, intelligent, funny, and we seemed perfect together. At least, that's what I thought until last Tuesday evening. I had gotten home early from work, around 5 p.m., because I wanted to surprise Sarah. We had been so busy with wedding preparations that we barely had time for each other anymore. I thought it would be nice to cook her favorite dinner and maybe watch a movie together. When I walked into our apartment, I could hear voices coming from the living room. Sarah was on the phone with someone, and her voice carried that relaxed, intimate tone she used when talking to her best friend Jessica. I didn't want to interrupt, so I quietly put my keys down and headed toward the kitchen. That's when I heard my name mentioned, and something made me stop. You know that feeling when your gut tells you something's wrong? That was exactly what happened to me in that moment. I mean, don't get me wrong, Jake is amazing, Sarah was saying, and I felt a little smile form on my face. He's sweet, he's caring, he treats me like a queen, and he's going to be a great husband. I was about to walk into the room and surprise her when she continued talking, and the next words made my blood run cold. But Jessica, I have to be honest with you about something I've never told anyone. Jake will never be the lover that Marcus was. Never. Marcus was just God. He was incredible. The things that man could do to my body, Jake could never even come close. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. Marcus was her ex-boyfriend, the one who had broken up with her about 6 months before we met. She had always told me he was a jerk who had hurt her badly, and I had been the one to help her heal from that relationship. I know this sounds awful, Sarah continued, but sometimes when Jake and I are together, I close my eyes and think about Marcus. Jake tries so hard, bless his heart, but Marcus was just more gifted, if you know what I mean. In every way possible. My hands started shaking. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was the woman I was going to marry. The woman I had spent the last 2 years loving with everything I had. The truth is, Sarah's voice became even quieter. I'm only with Jake because Marcus broke up with me. If Marcus wanted me back tomorrow, I would leave Jake in a heartbeat. But Marcus made it clear he never wants to settle down, so Jake is my safe option. He's husband material, even if he's not. Well, you know. I felt like the floor was disappearing beneath my feet. Every memory we had made together, every I love you, every passionate moment, it all felt like a lie now. I was her second choice, her backup plan, her safe option. Don't get me wrong, she continued. I do love Jake in my own way, but it's not the same kind of love I had for Marcus. With Marcus, it was pure fire and passion. With Jake, it's comfortable and stable. Sometimes I wonder if I'm being fair to him, but he seems happy, and he'll never know the difference. But I did know. I knew everything now. And as I stood there in my own hallway, listening to the woman I was about to marry tear apart everything I thought we had together, I realized that my entire relationship had been built on a foundation of lies and settling. The worst part wasn't even what she said about Marcus. It was hearing her talk about me like I was some kind of charity case she was doing a favor for. Like I should be grateful that she chose to settle for me when her first choice wasn't available. I quietly backed toward the front door, grabbed my keys, and left the apartment. I sat in my car for almost an hour, just trying to process what I had heard. My phone buzzed several times with texts from Sarah asking where I was and when I'd be home, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. That night, I drove to my best friend Mike's house and told him everything. Mike has always been brutally honest with me, and that night was no exception. Dude, he said after I finished telling him what happened, you can't marry her. You know that, right? This isn't something you can just forget or work through. She basically told her friend that you're her participation trophy. He was right, but hearing it out loud made it even more painful. I had been planning to spend the rest of my life with someone who saw me as a consolation prize. The next morning, I went back to the apartment. Sarah was getting ready for work and greeted me with her usual bright smile and kiss on the cheek, like nothing had happened, like she hadn't completely destroyed my world the night before. Where did you disappear to last night? She asked casually while putting on her makeup. I made dinner and waited for you. I looked at her standing there, acting like the loving fiancé, and I felt sick. How long had she been pretending? How many times had she kissed me while thinking about him? I went to Mike's, I said simply. Oh, that's nice. You should hang out with him more before the wedding. You know how crazy things are going to get these next few weeks. These next few weeks. She was talking about our wedding like it was actually going to happen. Like she hadn't just confessed to her friend that she was settling for me and would leave me for her ex in a heartbeat. I spent that entire day at work unable to concentrate. Every time my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, I felt nauseated. She was sending me cute messages and wedding planning updates, completely oblivious to the fact that I had heard every word of her conversation. That evening, Sarah suggested we go wedding dress shopping with her mom and sister on the weekend. She was so excited, talking about how perfect everything was going to be, how happy we were going to be together. As I watched her plan our future with such enthusiasm, knowing what she really thought about me, I made a decision. decision. I wasn't going to confront her immediately. I needed time to plan this carefully. Because if Sarah thought she could treat me like a backup plan while putting on an act, she was about to learn that I wasn't as naive as she assumed. The wedding was in 3 weeks, and everyone we knew was planning to be there. Family members had booked flights, we had vendors hired, deposits paid, and over 150 guests who had already RSVP'd. Sarah had no idea that I knew the truth about how she really felt, and I was going to make sure that when I revealed what I had learned, it would be at a moment and in a way that she would never forget. Over the next few days, I found myself watching Sarah like I was seeing her for the first time. Every smile, every kiss, every "I love you" felt completely hollow now. She was such a good actress. If I hadn't heard that phone conversation, I never would have suspected that she saw me as anything less than the love of her life. On Thursday evening, we went to dinner with her parents to discuss some final wedding details. Her mother was gushing about how perfect we were together, and how excited she was to have me as a son-in-law. Sarah's dad pulled me aside and told me how happy I made his daughter, and how grateful he was that I had helped her get over that jerk Marcus. The irony was almost too much to bear. Here was Sarah's own father praising me for helping her get over the man she was still desperately in love with, the man she wished she was marrying instead of me. "You know, Jake," Sarah's mom said over dessert, "Sarah was in such a dark place when Marcus left her. I was worried she'd never find love again, but then you came along and brought the light back into her eyes." Sarah reached over and squeezed my hand, looking at me with what I used to think was pure love. "Jake saved me," she said softly. "I don't know what I would have done without him." I wanted to throw up. She was sitting there, telling her parents how much she loved me, while I knew she was only with me because her first choice didn't want her. Every word felt like a knife twisting in my chest. That weekend, as promised, we went wedding dress shopping. Sarah had invited her mom, her sister Emma, her cousin Lisa, and Jessica, the same Jessica who had heard all of Sarah's confessions about me. Watching Jessica that day was almost as painful as watching Sarah. She kept giving me these sympathetic looks, like she felt sorry for me. She knew the truth about what Sarah really thought of me, and she was watching me play the role of the happy groom-to-be. When Sarah came out in the dress she ultimately chose, everyone started crying and saying how beautiful she looked. She did look stunning, and for a moment, I forgot about everything I had learned. For just a second, I saw the woman I had fallen in love with, and I remembered why I had wanted to spend my life with her. But then Jessica said, "Sarah, you look like a princess. Jake is so lucky to have you." The way she said it, with that slight emphasis on Jake, reminded me instantly of the truth. I wasn't lucky to have Sarah. I was her consolation prize, her backup plan, her safe option. That night, Sarah was on a complete high from finding her dress. She was cuddled up against me on the couch, talking excitedly about our future. "I can't wait to be your wife," she said, looking up at me with those beautiful green eyes. "We're going to have such an amazing life together, Jake. I love you so much." And that's when I decided I had to test something. I had to know just how deep her deception went. "Sarah," I said carefully, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, baby. Anything." "Do you ever think about Marcus?" I felt her entire body tense against me. For just a split second, her mask slipped, and I saw something like panic flash across her face. But she recovered quickly. "Marcus?" she said, trying to sound casual. "Why would you ask about him?" "I don't know. I guess sometimes I wonder if you ever compare us, or if you miss anything about your relationship with him." Sarah sat up and looked at me with what appeared to be genuine confusion and hurt. "Jake, why would you even think about something like that? Marcus was a chapter in my life that's completely closed. You're my present and my future. You're the man I'm marrying in 2.5 weeks." She was good. If I hadn't heard her actual thoughts about Marcus, I would have completely believed her. "I know," I said. "I guess I just sometimes feel insecure about being the guy who came after him. Like maybe you settled for me." The word settled hit her like a physical blow. She actually flinched when I said it, and for a moment she looked terrified. But again, she recovered beautifully. "Jake," she said, taking my face in her hands, "listen to me. You are not second choice to anyone. You are not a consolation prize. You are the love of my life, and I chose you because you're perfect for me. Marcus was immature and selfish. He could never give me what you give me. I need you to believe that." Every word was a lie, delivered with such conviction that it almost sounded true. She was telling me exactly what she thought I needed to hear, while knowing that none of it was genuine. "You're right," I said, pulling her back against me. "I'm sorry for even bringing it up." "Don't apologize," she said, kissing my cheek. "It's normal to have pre-wedding jitters. But Jake, I need you to know that you're the only man I want to spend my life with." As we sat there in what she thought was a moment of loving reassurance, I was making mental notes of every lie she told me. She was so comfortable with deception that it came naturally to her. How many other conversations had we had where she told me exactly what she thought I wanted to hear, while feeling something completely different? The next morning, Sarah left early for a brunch with her bridesmaids. After she was gone, I did something I had never done before in our relationship. I went through her phone. I know it was a violation of privacy, but at that point, I felt like our entire relationship had been a violation of my trust. What I found was even worse than I had imagined. There were text messages with Jessica that went back months, all of them talking about me like I was some kind of project or charity case. Messages about how sweet I was and how I tried so hard, but also messages about how she missed the excitement she had with Marcus. But the worst messages were the recent ones, from just a week ago. Sarah had texted Jessica, "Sometimes I look at Jake and I feel so guilty. He loves me so much more than I love him, but I'm 27 and I need to get married. He's a good man who will be a good husband and father. That has to be enough, right?" Jessica had responded, "You deserve to be happy, but Jake deserves to be with someone who loves him the way he loves them. Are you sure you're doing the right thing?" And Sarah's response made my blood boil. "I do love him, just not the way he loves me, but he'll never know the difference, and we'll have a good life together." Sometimes love isn't about passion. Sometimes it's about making the practical choice. I took screenshots of everything, not because I planned to use them publicly, but because I needed proof that I wasn't imagining this. I needed evidence that everything I thought I knew about our relationship was based on lies. When Sarah came home from brunch, she was in an amazing mood. She had been talking to her bridesmaids about the wedding, and she was glowing with excitement. She started telling me about all the plans they had discussed, about how perfect the day was going to be, about how she couldn't wait to marry me. And as I listened to her, I realized that in her mind, none of this was really about me. The wedding wasn't about our love or our commitment to each other. It was about her getting the life she wanted. The wedding, the marriage, the social status, the security. I was just the man who happened to be willing to give her those things. That night, as we were getting ready for bed, Sarah looked at herself in the mirror and smiled. 2.5 weeks, she said dreamily. In 2.5 weeks, I'll be Mrs. Sarah Mitchell. And that's when I realized that Sarah wasn't just lying to me about her feelings. She had convinced herself that her practical reasons for marrying me were actually love. She had rationalized her way into believing that settling was the same thing as choosing. But I was done being anyone's second choice, and I was about to show her that the safe option she had chosen wasn't as predictable as she thought. The breaking point came exactly 1 week before our wedding. Sarah had been acting increasingly stressed about the final preparations, but she was also getting more affectionate with me, as if she was trying to convince herself that she was making the right choice. She kept telling me how much she loved me, how excited she was to be my wife, how perfect our life was going to be together. On Monday morning, I made a decision that would change everything. I called in sick to work and drove to the coffee shop where I knew Marcus worked. Sarah had mentioned it once in passing during our early dating days, and I had never forgotten. I needed to see this man who had such a hold on my fiancé's heart. I needed to understand what I was supposedly competing with. Marcus was exactly what I had expected him to be. Tall, muscular, confident in that effortless way that some people just have. He had the kind of presence that made people turn and look when he walked by. I could see why Sarah was still hung up on him. He was everything I wasn't, the bad boy who probably never had to try too hard for anything in his life. I ordered a coffee and sat in the corner, just watching him work. He flirted casually with the female customers, had that easy smile that probably melted hearts wherever he went. And then I saw something that made my stomach drop. Sarah walked in. I quickly pulled out my phone and pretended to be absorbed in it, hoping she wouldn't notice me. She walked straight up to Marcus at the counter, and the way her face lit up when she saw him was like nothing I had ever seen before. In 2 years together, Sarah had never looked at me the way she was looking at him in that moment. "Hey, stranger," she said, and I could hear the flirtation in her voice even from across the room. "Sarah," Marcus said with a grin, "what brings you to my humble workplace?" "I was just in the neighborhood," she lied. "We lived on the complete other side of town. Thought I'd grab a coffee." They talked for maybe 10 minutes, but I could see everything I needed to see. The way she leaned across the counter toward him. The way she laughed at everything he said. The way she touched her hair and bit her lip. This wasn't the behavior of a woman who was over her ex. This was a woman who was still completely infatuated. When Marcus handed her the coffee, their fingers touched, and I saw Sarah actually blush. She looked like a teenager with a crush. Nothing like the composed woman I knew. "So I heard through the grapevine that you're getting married," Marcus said casually. Sarah's entire demeanor changed. The flirtation disappeared, and she looked almost embarrassed. "Yeah," she said quietly. "Next week, actually." "That's great," Marcus said, but I could tell he didn't mean it. "Jake, right? The accountant?" The way he said accountant made it sound like a disease. Sarah just nodded. "He's a good guy," she said, but there was no enthusiasm in her voice. "He'll be a good husband." "Well, you deserve to be happy," Marcus said, and then he leaned across the counter and lowered his voice. I had to strain to hear what he said next. "You know, Sarah, I've been thinking about us lately, about what we had." Sarah's face went white. "Marcus, don't. I know the timing is terrible, but I miss you. I miss what we had together. Nobody has ever come close to making me feel the way you did." I watched my fiancé's face as the man she was still in love with told her he missed her. She looked like she was going to cry. "I'm getting married next week," she whispered. "I know," Marcus said, "but are you marrying him because you love him or because you think you should?" Sarah didn't answer. She just stood there, staring at him with tears in her eyes. "Think about it," Marcus said softly. "You know where to find me." Sarah grabbed her coffee and practically ran out of the cafe. I waited a few minutes before following her outside, and when I got to the parking lot, I saw her sitting in her car, crying. I sat in my own car and watched the woman I was supposed to marry in 1 week have a complete breakdown over another man. The man she had told her friend she would leave me for in a heartbeat if he wanted her back. And apparently, he did want her back. Jake. That evening, Sarah was quiet and distracted. She kept checking her phone, and every time it buzzed, she looked disappointed. She was waiting for Marcus to text her. On the week of our wedding, my fiancé was waiting for her ex-boyfriend to contact her. Is everything okay? I asked during dinner. Yeah, she said quickly. Just wedding stress, you know. But I knew it wasn't wedding stress. It was Marcus stress. It was the stress of having the man she really wanted finally show interest in her again, just days before she was supposed to marry the man she had settled for. Over the next 3 days, Sarah became a completely different person. She was distracted, moody, and distant. She kept making excuses to leave the apartment, errands that didn't need to be run, last-minute wedding preparations that could have waited. I knew she was hoping to run into Marcus again, or maybe she was actually meeting him. I didn't follow her to find out. I didn't need to. Her behavior told me everything I needed to know. On Thursday night, 2 days before our wedding, Sarah got a text message while we were watching TV. When she read it, her face went completely red, and she quickly put her phone face down on the coffee table. Who was that? I asked casually. Just Jessica, she lied, asking about tomorrow's rehearsal. But I had seen enough of the message to know it wasn't from Jessica. It was from a contact saved as M, and the preview had said, I can't stop thinking about. My fiancé was receiving romantic text messages from her ex-boyfriend 2 days before our wedding. That night, while Sarah was in the shower, I looked at her phone. She had changed her passcode, which she had never done in the 2 years we had been together. The woman who used to leave her phone lying around without a care in the world had suddenly become secretive about it. I didn't need to read the messages to know what was happening. Marcus had reached out to her, probably telling her he wanted her back, and Sarah was seriously considering leaving me for him. 2 days before our wedding, with 150 guests flying in from around the country, with vendors paid and flowers ordered and a church booked, my fiancé was planning to run away with her ex-boyfriend. The next morning, Friday, the day of our wedding rehearsal, Sarah couldn't even look me in the eye. She was getting ready for work, but she kept checking her phone every few seconds. Sarah, I said quietly, is there something you need to tell me? She froze, still looking in the mirror while putting on her makeup. What do you mean? I mean, if you're having second thoughts about tomorrow, now would be the time to say something. For a moment I thought she was going to confess everything. I could see the internal struggle on her face, but then she turned around and gave me what I now recognized as her fake smile. Jake, I love you. I want to marry you tomorrow. I'm just nervous, like any bride would be. Another lie, delivered with the same conviction as all the others. That afternoon we had our wedding rehearsal. Both of our families were there. Our wedding party, the officiant. Everyone was excited and happy, talking about what a beautiful couple we were and how perfect the ceremony was going to be. But I spent the entire rehearsal watching Sarah. She went through all the motions, smiled at all the right times, said all the right things, but she checked her phone obsessively, and every time it buzzed, she looked hopeful. When it didn't buzz, she looked disappointed. During the rehearsal dinner, Sarah's maid of honor Jessica gave a speech about how perfect Sarah and I were together, and how she had never seen Sarah happier. The irony was staggering. Jessica knew better than anyone that Sarah didn't really love me, yet she stood there and lied to a room full of people about our perfect relationship. After dinner, as people were starting to leave, Sarah pulled me aside. Jake, she said, and I could see that she was struggling with something. I need to tell you something. This was it. She was finally going to confess. 2 years of lies were about to come to an end. What is it? I asked. She looked at me for a long moment, and I could see tears forming in her eyes. I just want you to know that tomorrow is going to be the best day of my life, she said finally. Even when she was trying to come clean, she couldn't do it. She couldn't bring herself to tell me the truth, even when she knew she was about to destroy my life. That night, Sarah barely slept. She tossed and turned, checked her phone constantly, and got up 3 times to pace around the apartment. I pretended to be asleep, but I was watching her. I was watching the woman I was supposed to marry in less than 12 hours struggle with whether or not to abandon me at the altar. Around 3 a.m., she finally got a text that made her sit up straight in bed. She read it, and even in the darkness, I could see her smile. Then she quietly got out of bed, went to the bathroom, and I heard her typing a response. When she came back to bed, she seemed more relaxed than she had been in days. Whatever Marcus had told her, it had made her decision for her. I lay there in the darkness, knowing that in a few hours, I was either going to be married to a woman who didn't love me, or I was going to be left standing at the altar in front of everyone I cared about. But what Sarah didn't know was that I had made a decision too, and unlike her, I wasn't going to wait until the last minute to act on it. Saturday morning, our wedding day, arrived gray and drizzly. Sarah woke up around 7 a.m. and immediately reached for her phone. Whatever she read made her face light up with a smile I hadn't seen in weeks. She looked genuinely happy for the first time since Marcus had contacted her. "Good morning, my future husband," she said, leaning over to kiss me. But even her kiss felt different now, like she was saying goodbye instead of hello. "Morning," I said. "How are you feeling?" "Nervous," she admitted, "but good nervous. Today's going to be perfect." I watched her get ready, knowing it would be the last time I would see her as my fiancé. She took extra care with her appearance, humming while she did her makeup. She looked beautiful, but I realized now that she wasn't getting ready for me. She was getting ready for him. Around 9 a.m., Sarah left to meet her bridesmaids at the hotel where they were getting ready. Before she left, she hugged me tighter than usual. "I love you, Jake," she said, and for the first time, it sounded like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. I love you too, I replied, and meant it. Despite everything, I did still love her, but I loved myself more than I was willing to be anyone's second choice. After she left, I called Mike. Today's the day, I told him. Are you ready? Are you sure about this, man? Mike asked. Once we do this, there's no going back. I'm sure, I said. She made her choice when she decided to keep lying to me. I'm just making mine. At 11 a.m., I got in my car and drove to Marcus's coffee shop. It was Saturday, so he wasn't working, but I knew where he lived. Sarah had driven past his apartment building once early in our relationship and pointed it out, back when she was still pretending he meant nothing to her. I parked outside his building and called him. I had gotten his number from Sarah's phone the night before. Hello? He answered, sounding confused. Marcus, this is Jake, Sarah's fiancé. We need to talk. There was a long pause. How did you get this number? That's not important. I know you've been texting my fiancé, and I know you told her you want her back. I'm outside your building. Come down. Another pause. Look, man, I don't want any trouble. Neither do I said. I just want to talk. 5 minutes. He came down a few minutes later, looking wary. He was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, but he still had that effortless confidence that I could never pull off. What do you want? He asked. I want you to tell me the truth, I said. Do you love Sarah? He looked surprised by the directness of the question. What kind of question is that? A simple one. Do you love her? Or are you just messing with her head because you're bored? Marcus ran his hand through his hair and looked uncomfortable. It's complicated, man. No, it's not, I said. Either you love her enough to commit to her, or you don't. Which is it? Why are you asking me this? Shouldn't you be getting ready for your wedding? Answer the question, Marcus. He was quiet for a long moment, and I could see him wrestling with something internal. I do love her, he said finally. I always have, but love isn't always enough, you know? Sarah and we're explosive together. It's passionate and intense, but it's also destructive. We bring out the worst in each other as much as the best. So why are you trying to get her back now? Because I'm an idiot, he said with a bitter laugh. Because I realized what I lost when I saw her the other day. Because I'm selfish, and I don't want to see her marry someone else. Even though you know you're not good for her? Even though I know I'm not good for her, he confirmed. I looked at this man who had such power over my fiancé, and I realized something. He wasn't the villain in this story. He was just as flawed and confused as the rest of us. Marcus, I said quietly, I need you to do something for me. What? I need you to meet Sarah at the church today, at 2 p.m., right before the ceremony starts. He looked at me like I had lost my mind. You want me to crash your wedding? I want you to give her the choice she's been afraid to make. She's been lying to me for 2 years, telling me she loves me while wishing she was with you. I'm tired of being someone's consolation prize. But if I show up, she'll leave with me. You know that, right? I know that, I said. And that's exactly what I want to happen. Marcus stared at me for a long moment. You're serious. Dead serious. Sarah deserves to be with someone she actually loves, even if it's not me. And I deserve to be with someone who chooses me first, not because their first choice wasn't available. Why would you do this? Because I love her enough to let her go, I said. And because I love myself enough not to spend my life with someone who settled for me. We talked for another few minutes, and I explained exactly what I wanted him to do. By the time I left, Marcus looked like he had seen a ghost, but he had agreed to my plan. At 1 p.m., I arrived at the church. The parking lot was full of cars, and I could see guests in their wedding attire walking toward the entrance. My groomsmen were already there, along with both sets of parents. Everyone looked excited and happy, completely unaware that the groom was about to blow up his own wedding. I found Mike in the groom's preparation room. Did you talk to him? Mike asked. Yeah, I said. He'll be here at 2. And you're sure about this? Because once Sarah sees him, there's no pretending anymore. Everyone's going to know what kind of person she really is. Good, I said. I'm tired of being the only one who doesn't know the truth about my own relationship. At 1:30, Sarah's maid of honor Jessica knocked on the door. Jake, she said, Sarah wants to see you before the ceremony. This was against tradition, but I agreed. I found Sarah in the bridal preparation room, looking absolutely stunning in her wedding dress. When she saw me, her face lit up, but I could see the anxiety in her eyes. You look beautiful, I told her, and meant it. Thank you, she said softly. Jake, I need to tell you something. What is it? She took a deep breath. I just want you to know that no matter what happens today, I do love you. Maybe not in the way you deserve to be loved, but I do love you. It was the closest thing to honesty she had given me in 2 years. I know, I said quietly, and I love you too. But Sarah, we both deserve more than maybe not in the way you deserve. She looked confused by my response, but before she could ask what I meant, there was a commotion outside. Voices in the hallway. Someone saying, "What is he doing here?" Sarah's face went white. Somehow she knew exactly what that commotion meant. Sarah, I said gently, there's someone here to see you. Jake, what did you do? I gave you the choice you've been too afraid to make. The door opened, and Marcus walked in. Sarah actually gasped when she saw him, and I watched all the color drain from her face. Hello, Sarah, Marcus said quietly. Sarah looked back and forth between Marcus and me, and I could see her mind racing. How? Why are you here? She asked Marcus. Jake called me, Marcus said. He told me that you've been unhappy, and that maybe I should give you a choice before you make a decision you might regret. Sarah turned to me with tears in her eyes. Jake, I can explain. You don't need to explain anything, I said. I heard your phone conversation with Jessica 2 weeks ago. I know you're only marrying me because because Marcus broke up with you. I know you close your eyes and think about him when we're together. I know you would leave me for him in a heartbeat if he wanted you back." Sarah's mouth fell open. She looked like she might faint. "Well," I continued, looking at Marcus, "he wants you back. So now you get to choose. You can marry me and spend the rest of your life wondering what if, or you can go with the man you actually love." "Jake," Sarah whispered, "I'm so sorry." "I know you are," I said. "But sorry doesn't change the fact that you've been lying to me for 2 years." I looked at both of them standing there, and I felt a strange sense of peace wash over me. "I'm going to go tell our guests that there won't be a wedding today," I said. "What you two decide to do after that is up to you." And with that, I walked out of the room, leaving my fiancée alone with the man she had never stopped loving. Walking into that church full of 150 guests who were expecting to see a wedding was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Everyone was dressed in their finest clothes, smiling and chatting excitedly. My parents were in the front row, beaming with pride. Sarah's parents were across the aisle, her mother dabbing at her eyes with happiness. I walked to the front of the church and asked the officiant for the microphone. The talking gradually died down as people realized something was happening. "Thank you all for being here today," I began, my voice surprisingly steady. "I know you came here expecting to see Sarah and me get married, and I'm sorry to tell you that's not going to happen." The silence in the church was deafening. I could see confused faces, people looking around at each other trying to understand what was happening. "Some of you might be wondering why," I continued. "The simple answer is that Sarah is in love with someone else, and she has been our entire relationship. I only found out recently, but rather than force her into a marriage where she would be settling for her second choice, I decided to give her the chance to be with the person she actually wants to be with." My mother gasped audibly. Sarah's mother stood up like she was going to object, but her husband pulled her back down. "I want you all to know that this isn't about anger or revenge," I said. "This is about two people who deserve to be with someone who chooses them first. Sarah deserves to be with someone she's passionate about, and I deserve to be with someone who doesn't have to convince themselves they love me." I could see tears on many faces in the crowd. My aunt was crying openly. Sarah's grandmother looked like she was in shock. "The reception venue and food have all been paid for," I continued. "I encourage you to stay and enjoy the party anyway. Just because there's no wedding doesn't mean we can't celebrate friendship and family." I handed the microphone back to the officiant and walked toward the exit. As I passed the pews, I could hear whispered conversations starting up. Some people looked at me with pity, others with admiration. A few looked angry, probably assuming I had done something wrong. Mike caught up with me in the parking lot. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Lighter," I said, and I meant it. Like I've been carrying around this weight for 2 years and I finally put it down. We went back to my apartment and I changed out of my wedding suit. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe normally. My phone was buzzing constantly with calls and texts from family members, but I wasn't ready to deal with that yet. Around 4 p.m., Sarah called me. I let it go to voicemail. She called 3 more times before I finally answered. "Jake," she said, and I could tell she had been crying. "Please let me explain." "There's nothing to explain, Sarah. You made your choice." "I didn't go with him," she said quietly. That surprised me. "What do you mean?" "After you left, Marcus and I talked, and I realized something. You were right about everything. I have been lying to myself as much as to you. I do love Marcus, but I also love the idea of Marcus more than the reality of him. We're not good together, Jake. We never were. So what are you saying?" "I'm saying that I ruined the best thing that ever happened to me because I was too stupid and immature to appreciate what I had." "Sarah, I know you'll never take me back," she continued. "I know I don't deserve it, but I need you to know that losing you today made me realize that what we had was real, even if I was too blind to see it. If what we had was so real, why did you spend 2 years lying to me about how you felt?" "Because I was scared," she said. "I was scared that if I admitted I wasn't over Marcus, you would leave me. And I was scared that if I stayed with Marcus, he would hurt me again. So I convinced myself that practical love was enough. But it wasn't enough, was it?" "No," she whispered. "It wasn't, and now I've lost both of you." After I hung up, I felt sad for Sarah, but I also felt vindicated. She had finally admitted the truth, not just to me, but to herself. Over the next few days, I heard through mutual friends what had happened after I left the church. Apparently, Sarah and Marcus had talked for about an hour. She had told him that she did love him, but that she also realized they brought out the worst in each other. Marcus had agreed, saying that he had only reached out because he was lonely, not because he thought they had a real future together. Sarah had gone home alone that day. Marcus had left town the following week, apparently deciding he needed a fresh start somewhere else. The fallout from the wedding was significant. Sarah's family was mortified, especially her mother, who had been so excited about having me as a son-in-law. Some of our mutual friends took sides, with a few people thinking I was cruel for handling things the way I did. But most people, once they understood the full situation, supported my decision. My family was incredible throughout everything. My parents were hurt for me, but they were also proud that I had stood up for myself instead of accepting a marriage based on lies. About 2 weeks after the wedding that never happened, I ran into Jessica at the grocery store. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me, but I approached her anyway. "Jake," she said awkwardly. "How are you doing?" "I'm good," I said, and meant it. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "How long have you known that Sarah was still in love with Marcus?" Jessica looked down at her shoes. "Pretty much the whole time you guys were together." "I'm sorry, Jake. I told her so many times that she was being unfair to you, but she wouldn't listen. Why didn't you ever say anything to me? It wasn't my place, she said, but I felt terrible about it. You're a good guy, and you deserved better. Well, now I have the chance to find better, I said. 3 months later, I moved to a different neighborhood. I needed a fresh start, away from all the places that reminded me of Sarah and our relationship. I started therapy to work through the trust issues that came from being lied to for 2 years, and I began focusing on rebuilding my life. The hardest part wasn't missing Sarah, it was learning to trust my own judgment again. If someone could lie to me so convincingly for so long, how would I ever be able to tell if someone was being genuine with me? But slowly, I started to heal. I reconnected with old friends, picked up hobbies I had neglected during my relationship, and began to rediscover who I was when I wasn't trying to be someone's second choice. About 6 months after the wedding, I heard that Sarah had started dating someone new. According to mutual friends, she seemed genuinely happy with him, and more importantly, she seemed to have learned from her mistakes with me. I hoped that was true. Despite everything, I wanted her to be happy. As for Marcus, I never heard from him again. The last I heard, he had moved to another state and was working at a restaurant there. I hoped he had found some peace too. 1 year after the day that was supposed to be my wedding, I met someone new. Her name was Emma, and she was nothing like Sarah. Where Sarah was dramatic and intense, Emma was calm and steady. Where Sarah was always looking over her shoulder at what she might be missing, Emma was present and engaged with what was right in front of her. Most importantly, Emma chose me. Not because her first choice wasn't available, not because I was safe or practical, but because she genuinely wanted to be with me. The difference was so obvious that I wondered how I had ever accepted anything less. Today, 2 years after what should have been my wedding day, I'm sitting in the same coffee shop where I first confronted Marcus, but this time I'm here with Emma. We're planning our own engagement, and the contrast couldn't be more stark. Where wedding planning with Sarah felt like I was constantly trying to prove myself worthy of her attention, planning with Emma feels like a collaboration between equals. She asks for my opinion because she values it, not because she feels obligated to include me in decisions about my own wedding. What are you thinking about? Emma asks, noticing that I've gotten quiet. Just how different this feels, I tell her honestly. How right this feels. She reaches across the table and takes my hand. Good different? The best different. About a month ago, I ran into Sarah at a mutual friend's birthday party. It was the first time we had seen each other since the day of our canceled wedding. She looked good, healthier somehow, like she had finally stopped fighting with herself. We ended up talking for a few minutes, and she told me that she had been in therapy too. She had learned a lot about why she had been so afraid to be honest, both with me and with herself. I want you to know, she said, that breaking up with you was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but it was also the best thing I ever did for you. You deserved so much better than what I was giving you. We both deserved better, I told her. I hope you found it. I'm getting there, she said with a small smile, and I can see that you have. She was right. I had found better, but more importantly, I had learned to expect better. Emma knows the whole story about Sarah and our relationship. I told her everything early on because I never wanted to build another relationship on anything less than complete honesty. Her response was what made me realize she was special. I'm sorry that happened to you, she had said, but I'm also grateful because it taught you what you won't accept in a relationship, and it means that when you tell me you love me, I know you mean it completely. That's the thing about going through something like what I went through with Sarah. It makes you appreciate genuine love when you find it. Emma has never made me question her feelings for me. She has never made me wonder if I'm her second choice. When she looks at me, I see the same love in her eyes that I feel for her. Last week, Emma and I went to look at engagement rings. The jeweler was showing us different options, and Emma kept asking what I thought about each one. Don't you have a preference? I asked her. Of course I do, she said, but I want something we both love. This ring is going to represent both of us. Such a simple concept, but one that Sarah had never understood. With Sarah, everything had been about what she wanted, with my role being to provide it. With Emma, we're building something together. A few months ago, I got a text from Marcus. He had gotten my number from a mutual acquaintance and wanted to apologize for his part in what happened. He told me that reaching out to Sarah before our wedding was one of the worst things he had ever done, and that he respected how I had handled the situation. You showed her what real love looks like, he wrote. Even when you were angry, you put her happiness before your own. I could never do that. I appreciated the apology, but I realized I didn't need it anymore. I had moved so far past that chapter of my life that his words felt like they were about someone else's story. Sometimes people ask me if I regret calling off the wedding the way I did, if I wish I had handled it differently, maybe tried to work things out with Sarah instead of orchestrating such a public revelation. The answer is no. Sarah had 2 years to be honest with me, and she chose deception every single day. She was planning to walk down the aisle and make vows to me while wishing she was marrying someone else. If I had confronted her privately, she would have found a way to convince me that she could change, that she could learn to love me the way I deserved. And maybe I would have been foolish enough to believe her. But by forcing her to choose between Marcus and me in that moment, I gave both of us the chance to see the truth clearly. She didn't choose Marcus, but she also couldn't choose me. And that told us everything we needed to know. The hardest part of the whole experience wasn't the public embarrassment, or the canceled wedding, or even the heartbreak. It was learning that someone I loved and trusted had been lying to me every day for 2 years. It was realizing that every "I love you" had come with an unspoken, but not as much as I loved him. But it also taught me something valuable. It taught me that I would rather be alone than be with someone who settled for me. It taught me that love without honesty isn't really love at all. And it taught me that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to refuse to accept their lies. Today, as I sit here with Emma, planning our future together, I feel nothing but gratitude for everything that happened with Sarah. Because without that experience, I might never have recognized real love when it found me. Emma and I are getting married next spring, exactly 3 years after the wedding that never happened. The guest list will be smaller this time, just close family and friends. But every person who will be there will be celebrating something real. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had never overheard that phone conversation. Would Sarah and I still be together? With her going through the motions of being happy while secretly longing for someone else? Would I have spent my whole life wondering why I never felt truly loved by the person who was supposed to love me most? I'm glad I'll never have to find out. Sarah taught me what I wouldn't accept in love. Emma is showing me what I should expect. And the difference between the two has made all the difference in my life. What do you think of this story? Have you ever been in a relationship where you felt like someone's second choice? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this resonated with you.